hear thousands.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Kind enough to join us right now is the Attorney General for the state of Minnesota, Keith Ellison. He is kind enough to take some time today to talk about the Harris Walls campaign in the state of Minnesota. Mr. Attorney General, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Great to be with you. Thank you very much for having me on.
No,
I am anxious to talk about housing.
Oh, well, and first of all, thank you. This is an absolute privilege to chat with you. You were at the DNC out there. You had a great speech out there. Just before we get into the housing issues here that Harris is, that Vice President Harris and Walls are going to talk about, let's talk about the DNC. Your thoughts there as you were there in Chicago.
Well, you know what? We came together. We launched out of that convention as a unified party. I was excited about that, hearing her message of unity. We heard from a diverse group of people, including union members, including people who served in our armed services, including some Republicans, and of course Bernie Sanders. So the progressive wing was well represented. AOC gave a rousing speech. So I felt like we had a big tent, from the right, center right to the left on the spectrum, and many people in between. So I thought it was a great convention. It was fun. It was exciting. We had a lot of very important conversations: housing, wages, lifting up labor. I actually helped co-host a panel, first time ever, where the voices of Palestinian Americans were lifted up and heard very clearly. And so I thought it was a great convention, and I feel we're ready to win. We got 70 days, 69 days to go, and I think we're on a path to victory.
We are in a very unfamiliar territory as far as a political campaign goes. To be able to launch it a month ago and to be where we're at today, it is usually something where we get the ability to talk about specific policy issues in a much more long process. But now I like the fact that we're having Democrats across the country get out there and talk about specific issues that the Harris Walls campaign is going to champion. You want to talk about housing today, and this is something I am glad this is being addressed, because this isn't an inner city problem. This is an everywhere problem. Every community right now has a massive housing shortage, and it's not getting fixed.
Well, let me tell you, the reason I'm excited about it is because I can't remember the last time that housing was a presidential agenda item, right? I know that President Lyndon Johnson talked about housing. He passed a fair housing law. But since then, housing has not been a central item, and now it is. And so I'm excited about it. I think that having a goal of 3 million more housing units is very ambitious, yet doable. Helping people with housing assistance, very important, particularly for young people. People who, in their 20s and 30s who still haven't been able to get that house yet. I think that's a big, big deal. Encouraging local communities to change their zoning laws so that there can be more housing and it won't be restricted by local housing restrictions. I think these are all very good ideas. One of the things that I've been doing and that the Harris administration wants to do is to really stop some of the bad landlords. And again, there's a lot of good landlords.
Yes.
But there are some bad ones, and I've had to take them to court myself. And in a very tight housing market, landlords who don't want to do the right thing have a freer hand to do the wrong thing because they got lines of people lined up to buy their unit. So it's like, if you don't like the fact that I haven't fixed the plumbing or your window or whatever, I got 5 people who want to rent this unit, so like it, suck it up and deal. Mm-hmm. And people shouldn't have to do that. That's not what the law requires, and yet that's what the market is setting up. Again, standing up for the good landlords who don't do that, but recognizing that not all landlords are good landlords. So, that's sort of what she's doing, and I'm very excited about it because it is a way to help people afford their lives, a way to reduce costs, and I'm glad to hear about it.
And you bring up, that point is exactly right. With a lack of housing, bad landlords can take advantage of people. Getting more housing options out there is a good thing. When you look across, whether that's the Twin Cities Metro or across the rural parts of the state, one of the problems is, and you brought the zoning issue, which is absolutely a huge problem, but as well, it's one of those things where we've got a system right now where when a house does get built, it's this massive 5,000, 6,000 square foot mansion. That's the one they're building. What they're not doing is practical 1,000-foot to 1,500-foot housing for starter families like we did in the 1950s where we had them everywhere. How do you encourage construction companies and cities to get out there and say, you know what, we need to get it's time for us to revisit the 1950s and start building neighborhoods again?
By changing the tax incentives, right? I mean, right now, with many of the housing tax laws and things like that, the way they are, they incentivize the McMansion. Like, the one of the mortgage interest deduction, right? You can, that goes up to houses that are quite expensive, quite big. What we need to do is have more houses that you can get in at that $200,000, $250,000, $300,000 level. At this point, those houses there's not that many of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you actually go on the market and looking for a house less than $200,000, you're going to be hard pressed to find it. And if you do find it, it's probably in bad, it's probably going to be what you call a fixer-upper, right?
Yes.
But we need to build some houses at that price point because that's what your young professional, young, construction worker, police officer, teacher, that's what they're going to be able to afford, right? And they're not going to start out buying a $500,000 house, and that's you can buy those, but those are pretty pricey for a lot of folks making less than six figures or right around there.
And it is interesting. I bought my house. It was 100. It was 150 plus when I bought my house 20 plus years ago. My house is worth is apparently now worth 370,000. And I'm like, okay, wait, this is crazy. How do you looking at that element? Because I got 3 Generation Z kids, and my oldest is getting to that point, graduated college, trying to get that job, wants to get eventually a house. How do you get those houses built and then stop the investment groups from coming in, people that are just trying to buy them to turn them into Airbnbs, or foreign entities who are buying them as a rental property? How do you address that issue to make sure the house is getting into the hands of a homeowner who wants to actually live in the house, and it's in that house there? It's all self-contained at the house.
Well, it's a simple matter of writing the rules to incentivize that very thing. One of the things that happened after 2008, after the foreclosure crisis, a lot of the houses that came on the market, if you had cash was king. People bought up a lot of them at once and then turned them into rental units and all kinds of other sort of commercial properties. But there are ways to say you will get a homestead incentive if you are owner-occupied, if you are a first-time home buyer. We need to just set it up, write the rules to advantage the first-time home buyer, because that is who we need to prioritize our public policy to help. We don't need to help some private equity hedge fund that's trying to buy a bunch of units just so they can turn a quicker profit. And quite frankly, I've had to take some of those kind of folks to court. We sued Havenbrook Homes. We sued, others doing that kind of thing, because it's not. I mean, it's even tougher than it used to be, because it used to be, I remember your landlord was the lady who lived in the upstairs flat.
Yeah.
Now it's somebody across the country who nameless, faceless, and you can hardly get them to fix anything. So that building more units, writing the rules to advantage first-time home buyers, owner-occupied dwellers, these are the ways that we're going to get the home ownership that we need. And not just home ownership, because not everybody wants to buy, not everybody's ready to buy. We even need more rentals at a price point that's somewhere between $900 and $1,500, which is right now those are hard to come by. Now they got units going up that you can spend $2,000, $2,500 on, but those at the lower price point where folks with more regular income need to rent. Even those are harder to come by, and we need to make the incentives so that those get built as well.
I want to talk more about apartments. Attorney General Keith Ellison is kind enough to join us today, talking about the housing platforms that the Harris Walz campaign is putting forward. Really quickly, I want to talk about that local story before I get into the other question about apartments. The St. Paul mayor, the Lowry Apartments, Melvin Carter over there, just furious at what has gone on with that building. Is your office looking into what's going on over there as well?
Yes, we've been having meetings on that. We're investigating that right now. The mayor's the thing that property is now it's going into the owner is relinquishing authority over it, and we really support what the mayor is doing. We've been in touch with him. We've been in touch with other local leaders, and it absolutely is a property that we're looking at. And we want people to know that if you're having problems with your landlord, you don't have to suffer in silence. Give us a call at 651-296-3353, 651-296-3353. And, those folks are suffering. We are investigating that case, and we're proud of the work that the leadership that the mayor is offering. And also State Legislator Maria Isa Perez Vega has been a real leader on that as well. Absolutely. As have other leaders in the community. So we're on it with them, and we're going to make a change there.
And Mayor Carter has been doing a great job there. But this backs up your point earlier. If we have a lack of apartment complex, stuff like this happens. So right. Let's talk about what the Harris campaign wants to do, because obviously we have to factor in the builders here. And right. I live in a suburb where there is rules. I was on planning and zoning in my suburb. There are rules that there has to be some apartments in any building that are for that marginal, income line that basically are set aside for lower income. One of the problems is that when you set some of this stuff up, I mean, there have been cases, and in St. Paul, where it de-incentivizes the manufacturers, the builders, from getting in there and building apartments because they're looking to get maximum dollars. How do you approach this from the builder side to make sure that they're building apartments that are affordable, but they're not? It's not it's not a situation where they're sacrificing too much to do that.
Well, I just think look, we got into the situation we're in because of the way we wrote the tax laws, the zoning laws, and where we put the incentives. If we have a system designed to have the builders build really big houses. We have a system designed to build at the highest price point, and we just have to change those incentives, and we have to have a bigger supply. Mm-hmm. So that is really what the challenge is. At this point, I think that we have an appetite with this particular presidential Democratic nominee to say, look, we're going to rewrite our tax rules to incentivize smaller units at a lower price point rather than bigger units at a more expensive price point. Where we can write our rules to say that if you're a builder or a developer, that we want more workforce-oriented housing. It's just a matter of making sure that we get rid of some regulations, like some of those zoning laws that, quite honestly, if you say that your frontage has to be this size and only related people can live in the unit and other things, you just make it a little tougher to put in some of the triplexes and the duplexes in there that could fit in very nicely in the neighborhood, but they're not zoned for that. We have to have a few things more relaxed, and we have to have more incentive for builders, and we have to have the right tax incentive. Not hard to do, just what you plan for.
Attorney General, you and I are the same. I'm very optimistic about how things are going here. Vice President Harris has been definitely an incredibly positive jolt of positivity and joy. There's policies. There are good policies that are coming out here. Looking at Minnesota overall, with Governor Walz on that ticket as well, are you like me? I'm feeling like this is going to be a great year, this election cycle. If everyone gets out there and works, everyone votes, it's going to be a great year for the DFL in Minnesota.
I absolutely believe that. I don't you notice? So, like back in June, some people were saying that maybe even Minnesota was a toss-up state. Now, Minnesota's not a toss-up, but maybe North Carolina is.
Yeah.
And more available for Democrats to win. Things have changed. I know that the Harris Walz campaign is putting money into Georgia, and I know we're working really hard in Minnesota because we still want to make sure that we win a Democratic House majority. We want to return Angie Craig back to the Congress. She's a great candidate. We need to get behind. And honestly, I just want to remind people that Minnesota's most successful Democratic politician, who is Amy Klobuchar, is on the ballot. And just because her opponent is way out there doesn't mean that we don't need people to be working for her as well. It's not in the bag. Nothing's ever in the bag.
Yep.
And you get what you work for. So let's not think that, oh, she's got it, so we don't have to worry about it. Yeah, we always got to worry about it.
Yeah. Let's flip 1 and 8 while we're at it. That would be really nice. We could flip those two. I'd be very happy with that.
Wouldn't that, we got great candidates there.
Yes, we
you know
do.
What I mean? I can tell you, Jen Schultz is a very sharp leader, and she would be a wonderful addition. And so would our candidate in the 1st District as well. Those are ones we can get back. Tim Walz won that 1st District, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And we can do it again.
Attorney General Keith Ellison, I can't tell you how much I'm privileged to have the time to chat with you. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate the time today.
Well, you bet, and thank you for letting me talk a little bit about housing. It is that one item that no family can really ignore. I mean, rent eats before anybody else does, and so it is extremely important that we tackle this housing issue. So thanks a lot, and have a great day.
It's an important one. Attorney General Keith Ellison, kind enough to join us today. Let's take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Wednesday.